Happy New Year, people. Thank you for joining us on the Nikki
Hey!
Medoro Show. Hello, my friends. I am so happy to be back. I missed you, Kim. I missed all of you. And so happy to officially ring in the new year on the Nikki Medoro Show. Thank you to Kim for filling in yesterday where I was in San Francisco. So you're going to have to forgive me because I need to know all about your guys' New Year's and everything like that. We don't have to go all the way back to Christmas, but did you make it to midnight, Kim McAllister?
I did. The rest of my family did not.
Oh no, they just fell asleep on you. So you sat there and
Well,
watched the ball drop.
David and Jacob were asleep, and the dog. I walked back to get my kisses, and everybody sacked out. And Julia, for the first time, was away. Well, for the second time, was away
Okay.
from us. She spent the night at a friend's house, and for the first time, I didn't know the people. I've never met the girl, never met the parents, nothing. I
Wow, that's
know.
big for Kim
I
McAllister.
know. It really was. What can I
My
say?
daughter also spent the night with a friend that night. I mean, I know her. She's one of my good mom friends. So she was with two of her really good friends ringing in the new year. I, called at midnight to wish her. I made
Yeah.
it to midnight. I actually made it to 1 o'clock in the morning. We had a couple friends over and so we rang in the new year with them. But it was very not in my 20s type of celebration, which was hilarious. Any New Year's resolutions?
Mm, not yet. I'm still working it out. What about
You know
you?
what? I've been reading this meme online where people are like, it doesn't have to be improving yourself. It could be something
Mhm,
like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And it doesn't have to be like a health thing. It just be like, I'm going
mhm,
to not go to parties I don't want to go to anymore. Right? I'm not going to do anything I don't want to do.
mhm.
I'm going to try to these are my two resolutions. I really want to focus on my sleep. I need to sleep better. I slept like crap last night, so I'm really failing on this New Year's
Oh,
resolution.
no.
But I'm really going to try different ways to sleep better. I've been reading a lot about sleeping and just if you don't sleep well, me, like
Mhm.
the rest of your day just sucks. Like yesterday, for instance. So always every time I have to work the morning shift in San Francisco, I can never sleep well the night before. It's just my mind is always like you're gonna miss your alarm, blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
and all those sorts of things. So I didn't sleep well. Then I came home and I come home at like what 3:40, 3:30 in the afternoon. I can't go take a nap. Everyone's awake. My kids are still home from school. They're still on vacation. And then the moment I enter the door, Mom, can you do this? Mom, can you take me there? And I'm just like trying to control my emotions, right? So that's what I want to do. I want to sleep better and then I want to move more. So guess what my husband got me for Christmas?
Some type of exercise thing?
He got me a
Oh,
Fitbit, which is kind of like, now
okay.
with the Apple Watches, everyone has those nowadays, but this is just a Fitbit.
Okay.
I don't know if I need this kind of negativity in my life. I'm just letting you know. It's like you have not moved your ass all day.
Get up. Time to
Get
get up.
You know what it does? And those of you, I know I'm way late on the Fitbit bandwagon, like totally, but it vibrates every hour to tell you, like, you should probably start moving. Like, if you want to
Time
get your 10,000 steps or whatever,
right.
it'll give you a reminder, like, hey, you have like 250 more steps to do this hour. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like yesterday. I'm sitting at KCBS. So then I'm trying while I'm in the studio, during if the sound is playing or I'm on a break, like
Down,
trying
up,
to
down.
walk in place and I look like a freaking weirdo doing that. But yeah, it's I'm gonna try to move more. Just move. I'm not saying I'm gonna, get the firmest ass or I'm gonna lose all this weight. I just want to move more. And I think that that's a reasonable goal where I'm not setting myself up for failure right at the beginning of the year, if that
Yeah, no,
makes
I love it.
sense.
That's good.
So I'm gonna do that. I do the best thing happened last night. So kind of to go along with this, I did this story yesterday over at KCBS. I'm sure you guys have been saying, eat healthy, avoid this, avoid that. One of the main things was avoiding ultra processed food. So all food is processed. So when people say I don't eat processed food, they're full of crap. I mean, an apple's not processed, but your bread is, right? You got to process it to eat it. But ultra processed, a good tip and trick is like if it has more than like 3 or 4 ingredients and or the ingredients you can't pronounce, don't eat it. Okay. So I'm doing this interview yesterday and I had brought with me thinking I was doing a good thing, a protein bar, right? Like I was like, okay, it's going to get me through the show. It's not a big meal. It's easy. It's convenient. The first ingredient wasn't even food, I don't think. Like, I looked on it when I was doing this interview, and I was like, this is not even food. It was like sodium isolate or some sort of crap like that, right?
Tasty.
Soy lectin or something. I don't know. It was some sort of crap. And I'm like, well, I'm still gonna eat it because I'm starving, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna rethink it. Well, for Christmas, I had gotten the kids cookbooks, right? I got one baking book and one cookbook. I'm telling you, parents out there, this is what you need to do. Dylan yesterday, first he made pancakes from scratch, which I was kind of laughing at because he can already make pancakes. He just uses like Bisquick or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know how to make pancakes? He's like, but this is from scratch. And I was like, okay, get the flour, get the baking soda, whatever.
There's a sense of accomplishment there. That's good.
Exactly. And you can kind of tweak the recipe if you like or whatever. So I come home and I should have pulled it. It was gorgeous looking pancakes. I mean, and he even had whipped cream and a little powdered sugar on there. Like
Wow.
the only problem and that he's going to learn is he didn't mix it well enough. So he's like, I took a bite of the pancakes and apparently like there was either baking soda or something that had not been,
Some clumps.
it was clumpy. And so it was like his first bite and he just couldn't like get away from it. So he didn't really care for the pancakes, but he learned. And then
Mhm.
last night he's like, I'm going to make dinner as well. I mean, this is just amazing, right? And
I
now I can
love
teach these
this.
kids how
This
to
is
do.
fantastic.
I know. I mean, he's doing better than you, my friend.
Mm.
He made. Now I'm Italian, right? We have a family sauce recipe. He's like, no, I want to do my own. It was a pretty basic recipe in this book because again, this is for kids, right? And you can add on
Mhm.
it. He made spaghetti and meatballs last night. Now the meatballs were frozen. He didn't make those from scratch, but the sauce, onions, seasoning, everything. I'm gonna
Wow.
tell you, Kim, it was bomb. Like
This is cool.
it was really good. So yeah, I'm
Making note.
excited.
Cookbook
Exactly.
for Jacob. This is great.
I mean, Dylan loves to cook. He really does. If he has the opportunity, so this morning to go on the whole food kick, he's going to be making a smoothie. He's going to put on his own without this is from the book, without my prodding and pleading. He's making a smoothie that has spinach and matcha tea powder, I guess he wants in it, and
Hmm.
pineapple. So that's what he's planning on making. Anything to get spinach in this kid's mouth, I'm totally stoked about. So yeah, I'm really, really happy about that purchase. I will say, I think that was one of my best purchases was the book. Absolutely.
Well, I went to the Nikki Medoro show or the Nikki Medoro list of favorites.
Yes, you did. How did it go? Oh, did you like the game?
I was just going to tell you, I bought 3 Otrios.
Okay, yes, that's right.
One for myself.
Mhm.
My family loves it. One for my sister's
they?
family. They love it.
Told you,
And one
it's
from
so fun.
a very good friend's family, and I haven't heard back from her yet. But my sister keeps sending pictures of them at the kitchen table playing Otrio every night. They are really having a good time with it.
It's so much fun.
Mhm.
It's an addictive game.
Mhm.
It seems simplistic, and then when you miss, right? When you miss one of the spots, it just drives you
Ugh.
crazy. It's a really good strategy game that's not hard to learn.
And
The
it's
bar
quick.
is really low.
It's quick. I mean,
Yeah.
it goes quick at my house.
Exactly.
My husband won. I think we played 10 times
Yeah.
in one sitting, and my husband won, I want to say 8 times out of 10. I'm like, he's like,
You're
yeah,
like, you
okay.
can't play anymore. You're
I
done.
know.
Leave.
Oh, you're out.
I also got something else for Christmas. And I can't believe that I got this. But it was a really good deal. And so we did it. I did it. And I can't wait for Jefferson Graham to come up.
What is this?
It's a new phone. I got the iPhone 15, if you can freaking believe it.
Is that a brand new one? Because usually you
That's
buy
the
used.
brand I do.
Oh.
Well, I don't buy used. I buy not newest.
Mm-hmm.
But the deal, like comparison that Verizon was offering, I had to get the 15. I was like, well, okay, obviously I'm going to get the 15. I know. Look, he's like flexing hard. I know the Fitbit was a gift. The phone, it basically pays for itself because I had pretty new of a phone. I had a what? I had an 11. I had a 12. I think I had a 12. So the trade-in was really, really good. So I got a new phone. I got a new Fitbit. Trying to think, you know what else I got from my husband, which I haven't turned on yet.
Something sexy? No.
An under the desk heater is quite sexy to
Oh.
somebody that's cold all the time. I open it up. I'm like, yes. So yeah, it
Got a lot of
was.
things going on under the desk over there.
I haven't turned it on. It's keeping my feet warm, if you know what I'm saying. Wink, wink.
Mhm.
Got to keep that pudding. Okay. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to kind of catch up on the holidays, and again, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions, things like that. Phone habits. I was talking to my husband, speaking of new phones, about trying to break our phone habits and things like that because our attention span is so short. But what I'm really excited to talk about today, and it's going to be in about 15 minutes or so, is I'm going to be talking with this gentleman by the name of Mark Kantrowitz. He's a financial aid expert. He wrote a book called How to Appeal for More College Financial Aid. He is also like one of the early writers of financial aid. He's a really, he knows his stuff, is what I'm trying to say. He knows his stuff, and he will be able to answer any questions we have. Because I know so many of you, I mean, I'm not looking obviously for financial aid yet, but I'm going to very
Mhm.
soon. My kids are going to be going to college, and, I don't want them to take up.
Maybe.
Maybe, very good point. Maybe they're going to go to community college first.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I want my kids to know their options because I don't want them to take out loans. That's the number one thing that I want to do. So he was
Mhm.
involved in putting the FAFSA online all the way back in 1996. All the way back in 1996, which so happened to be the year I graduated high school. So he also wrote a book that's out of print about filing the FAFSA. He has 2 books out. One is called How to Appeal for More College Financial Aid. He also wrote Who Graduates from College and Who Doesn't. So those are other, things that we could talk about. But if you have any questions, about financial aid, I know Janet, I saw earlier in the comments that you're about to fill out the FAFSA this month. The soft launch was a S show, apparently. It was a soft launch because they redid the form. Now, according to the Washington Post, if you can get in, it's easy peasy. So that's good news. But getting in, I mean, there was just delays and people not being able to log in and all sorts of things. Like, we're talking all day Sunday and most of Monday, people weren't able to get in. So I'll talk to Mark about that as well. But again, if you have any comments, or questions, put it in the comment box, and we'll try to get them answered when Mark comes on with us in about 15 minutes. We'll do some headlines, but before we do that, let's get the business that we do out of the way. Of course, the easiest thing to support the show is to click the thumbs up button. YouTube loves it because Super Chat is also live, and thank you to everyone, especially last year, that helped financially support the show, either through the Super Chat with the super stickers or what have you, or of course through our Patreon. If you want to become a Medorable for the new year and keep the show going, please do. Just go to thenikkimedoroshow.com, thenikkimedoroshow.com. We do take PayPal donations. So if you go to paypal.com and hit send, just put in the show's email, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. My list of favorite things is still up and running, like Kim was talking about with Otrio. Of course, the holiday season's over, so I don't know how many of us are buying gifts, but of course that is still going. And then if you go into the past shows, and I'm sorry, I don't have the link right now, but you wouldn't be able to click it, but it is in the show description today. Our poll is up. And I just wanted to kind of take an assessment of what you guys like, what you don't like. You guys are hilarious with some of the answers you've already set in. One of the questions was, if you could change anything about the show or add something or take something away, what is it? And it was like, everything's perfect or everything sucks. Thank you to the people that didn't say anything sucked, because it's all everything. I love everything. I really love feedback, though. And if you don't want to do the poll, you could always email me at that email that's on your screen, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. I love to hear your feedback.
What were some of your best favorite answers, or
Okay,
thoughts that maybe you hadn't thought about, but you're like, oh yeah, I get that?
Well, it was nothing was specific. I mean, I try to keep it broad, and then you could expand on your answers. Some people said, I don't know, which I find to be so funny. Now, Dawn, the poll, if you go into the about section of this video, I included it right at the top of the description. There should be a link there. So basically I asked, do you watch it live or recorded? Which way do you prefer? What are some of the segments you love? You guys love the politics and the news and the pop culture. But you know what was really stood out to me, at least at this point, and of course, I'm still accepting responses. They love our banter, Kim. So they feel like they're hanging out with friends. And I feel like, if I could speak for you, that's what we like the best too, right? Like, we love having random conversations. One person had said, I like that it's not completely scripted. Like we have the topics we're going to talk about, but then we go off on tangents. And I'll tell you, some of our most popular segments are when we just go off on something, like there's some sort of issue, whether it's Southwest Airlines, that
Mhm.
conversation we had about that policy blew up.
Oh,
And it's just one of those things where we just have strong opinions and all of you do as well.
sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can fill out the poll, but also you can email me. The poll's not going to last forever. So, yeah,
Where do you
just
find
find it
that
in.
poll?
Yeah. So go into the show description, Donald,
Oh.
of this show. And there's also a past video that I made on Monday or Sunday. My days are still gone. I have no idea what day it is. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah, because the kids go back to school tomorrow.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
just
they
look for it.
do?
Oh, thank God. Yes, they go back to
No,
school
mine have
tomorrow.
the rest of the week off.
I wish that, what? Part of me is like, come on, just give them the rest of the week off. But nope, they go back tomorrow and Friday. So yeah, just find it in the show description. It's easy peasy to fill out. And then if you want to give me your opinions a different way, just email us at the nikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. All right,
Mhm.
we're going to talk FAFSA in about 10 minutes, but I want to get some headlines in. And for the first time in 2024, here's
Woohoo!
my news czar, Kim McAllister, with the
Mhm.
news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Republican lawmakers are taking a trip to Texas today. Who wants to go to Texas? I guess Republican lawmakers, right?
Yeah.
Sorry if you're from San Antonio, my bad. They're trying to get a firsthand look at the southern border situation. House Speaker Mike Johnson will lead a group of about 60 in their visit to Eagle Pass, Texas. The Republicans plan to make a border security the issue, major issue in the upcoming elections.
I'm going to say this. So obviously we talk about the border crisis a lot.
Yeah.
You ever heard of the podcast? And I'm sure you guys have because it's an iconic one. It's been around for decades. This American Life.
Mhm.
It's on any of the popular podcast things. I was literally listening to a podcast that they were doing it wasn't in Texas though. It was in New York. And it was about migrants being
Mhm.
bused to New York, and they're at the Roosevelt Hotel. So that's like kind of the Ellis Island that it's there. I have not finished the episode because I was listening to it a little bit. It's really interesting when people talk about Ellis Island, which we know, happened when immigrants were coming back in the day to the United States. The difference between then and now is then they didn't provide you any services. They got your information, they jotted you down, and then bye, figure it
Mhm.
out. You better have had family. And obviously people fell into poverty. There were all kinds of shanty towns and things like that first started out, but it was different back then because not everybody was so rich right now. The difference now is these migrants come and and I don't say the word expect in a negative way, but they do expect somebody that might speak their language, will help them get on their feet, and those sorts of things. New York is bleeding money trying to help these people. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting to see. And I do think the federal government should be stepping up here. I do think that there needs to be. The biggest problem, 6 months. If you want to seek asylum in the United States, it takes 6 months before the United States will allow you to work. So you can come here, but you can't work. So if you
Yeah.
can't work, then you need
That's weird.
services. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a complete S show. But
Mm.
yeah, it'll be, Texas is right there. And I think that, again, I say this all the time, and I don't mean it in a positive way, but it is genius to kind of share the quote unquote pain with other states that just don't get it.
Yeah. Former President Trump's legal team is appealing a ruling by the Maine Democratic Secretary of State that he is ineligible to appear on the state's GOP primary ballot. We knew this would happen, and it has. In the appeal filed yesterday with Maine's Superior Court, Trump called Shanna Bellows a biased decision maker and claimed that she didn't have the legal authority to remove him from the ballot. The Supreme Court may ultimately decide this ballot question.
They're
and
going to
very
have
soon.
to, and it's going to be
Mhm.
really. I don't know. I mean, on one hand,
Yeah.
our friend John Rothman has said, many other people have said the voters should decide whether or not they make Donald Trump president.
Mhm.
But there is precedent here. If you're going to move things up to the U.S. Supreme Court, they have to make a decision about it. And so we'll see what they say.
Northeast and mid-Atlantic regions may see their first big winter storm in 2 years.
Hmm.
After a record warm December, January will be a different story with a storm system set to hit the east through the first 2 weeks of the new year. This includes Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City. I will say, and this isn't the big winter storm they're getting, but last night was so
Yes.
cold in the North Bay.
Oh,
I
was
mean,
it?
freezing. I went to bed at, and this isn't normal for me. Usually I'm a late night owl.
Right.
I went to bed at 8 o'clock because I was so cold. I needed to be under the covers. I was freezing.
You know, you can go to bed and like not go to sleep.
I was in there kind
You
of
bring
on
your
my
blankets
phone
on
work.
the couch.
Oh no,
No,
I needed
the
the warmth.
comforter.
I needed all of the layers. I needed
I love
everything.
it.
And my husband was already in there and he's, like
He's
a
like,
heat
"Who are you?
machine.
Why are you here so early?"
It was one of those nights where we actually had a dispute over get your cold toes off me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I hate
Yeah.
being cold. I had,
And I'm
yeah.
like, what's the point of being married if I can't put my cold toes on you?
No, it's like
Honestly.
it's an unwritten vow. Like
Right?
you warm me. If you're
That's what
hot, I'm
that's
cold.
exactly right.
You
Yes.
warm me.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. That's the way it is. I was thinking I was gonna wake up and see snow in Petaluma this morning, but there wasn't any. But it was
Oh,
stormy all night long, really
it was
like
raining a
heavy
lot down here.
rain.
I don't feel
Yeah.
like it was that cold, but it was definitely raining a lot here.
Well, 4 ports of entry at the southern border will be reopened on Thursday. Federal officials say they will reopen the ports that had previously been closed due to a record influx of migrants. The points of entry are located in Eagle Pass, Texas, as we mentioned, San Isidro, California, Lukeville, Arizona, and Nogales, Arizona as well. Those had been closed. They are now being reopened. A Muslim religious leader is in critical condition after being shot near a mosque in New
Ooh.
Jersey earlier this morning. Officials say the imam was shot at about 6:15 a.m. local time there in Newark, New Jersey. There's no word yet if the incident was motivated by a hate crime or what exactly happened there. So sad.
Hmm.
Seeing more and more things like this happen. It's just, you know, hate, hate. And I don't like starting the new year with hate.
No.
Do something different. Um, let's talk about COVID funding. Several Chicago City Council members are ripping the mayor. The plan is they're going to use $95 million in COVID-19 funds to address migrant housing. Wait a
What?
That's not what that money was for. Alderman Anthony Beal says the relief money was supposed to go to the citizens of Chicago, not the migrants new to the Windy City. He added that it's supposed to help business, people who have lost loved ones, resources to help the city that they lost during the pandemic. The mayor spoke with the alderman on Friday, indicating that he does have the authority to use that funding without a vote from the city council. So big hoop-de-doo in Chicago as they try to
Wow.
address what's going on. A woman is suing Hershey, lastly,
Okay.
after she unwrapped a Reese's Halloween peanut butter cup without its signature cute pumpkin face.
I know, I read about this. I scanned the story. So she wanted something imprinted in the chocolate, like a mold, correct?
This is the craziest lawsuit. It looks like a jack-o'-lantern shape that has just been dipped in chocolate, so it's smooth, right?
Okay.
But on the wrapper,
Right.
it has a Halloween jack-o'-lantern face.
Yes.
It tastes the same.
She wants the face, Kim. She bought it for the face, but maybe she was planning on doing something with it outside the package,
Then
right?
carve your own chocolate face. Oh my God, what a ridiculous thing to sue for.
Uh,
Cynthia Kelly expected the pumpkin-shaped chocolate to have a jack-o'-lantern face carved onto it, the way it's pictured on the wrapper. Instead, it was a plain pumpkin-shaped candy.
mm,
The horror.
the horror, yeah.
I mean, imagine this is your biggest problem in life. Kelly files a lawsuit against the maker of Reese's, Hershey, claiming it falsely represented several of the holiday products on its packaging. She said in the lawsuit that she would not have purchased this Reese's peanut butter pumpkin product if she knew that it didn't have the detailed carvings of the mouth and the eyes pictured on the
See?
product label.
False advertising. And I always have to correct people on this when they say it, when lawsuits like this happen. Spencer, oh, hold on. Where are you? There you are. Spencer writes, "This is worse than the lady who spilled coffee on herself and then sued. Go research that case. Go look at the pictures of how injured that woman was from that cup of coffee, and you'll rethink about making light of her lawsuit. The McDonald's coffee lawsuit was
Yeah.
100% justified. Now, I'll say this:
There's no injury here. She's not hurt.
there's no here, there's no standing. Like, I'm sorry, it sounds childish. You know what I mean? Like,
You open the package, you see there's no face, and you go, huh, that's a bit of a
okay,
disappointment.
shove it in your mouth and
Munch,
eat it.
right? That's what you do. Or you say, oh, I'm so disappointed, I won't buy that again. Or
Yeah.
you look at it and go, tastes the same going down without a face as with.
I mean,
Whatever.
they have to put something on the package. That's my thing. They want to make it cute and enticing. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean comes with face, should be like clearly marked on it. That'd be silly.
So
That'd be really
silly.
silly.
So they have an Easter egg, right? Have you
Uh-huh.
seen the Reese's Easter egg?
I'm not a huge
It's
Reese's eater, so
it's
no.
it's the same kind of thing where it looks like an Easter egg shape dipped in chocolate. They have a
Okay.
Christmas tree.
Yeah,
They might have a Valentine's heart,
I'm sure they do.
but who cares?
Kim's
Wow.
like, does it have the chocolate? Does it have the peanut butter? Can I put it in this mouth and eat it? Then we're good.
What a ridiculous lawsuit. If she gets any money, I'm going to be outraged. Outraged.
Outraged. Totally outraged. That's
This
hilarious.
report is sponsored by you, which means we count on you to help fund the show. Find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com. Please check out our Patreon link. Our PayPal link is there. Lots of other cool stuff to see as well. thenikkimedoroshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. All right. So, how many of you started the new year thinking about applying for financial aid? Maybe for yourself, maybe for your college-bound child or relative or what have you. So, there's a new FAFSA form. This was because a change is made back in, I believe, 2019, 2020, under the former administration, to make it easier. It was supposed to be easier. Now, apparently it rolled out on Sunday, what they call a soft launch. And what do they say about soft launches? You do soft launches to see where the problems are. And boy, were there a bunch of problems. According to the Washington Post, let's see. The FAFSA was available for a 30-minute window on Sunday, 2 hours on Monday, during which time more than 30,000 applications were successfully submitted. Submissions climbed to 150,000 on Tuesday when it opened the website for 6 hours, or the form, and then another 250,000 applications. 250,000 applications were in the process of being completed. So obviously, there are a lot of people that are looking for financial aid. And at a time when we are constantly talking about student loan debt and not kind of getting underwater with your education because, you know, whether it's wages or housing or whatever, once you leave college, things don't all of a sudden become cheaper, right? That degree is not a paycheck. And so you have to figure out a way to pay for your college education in a way in which it doesn't leave you underwater when you graduate.
I remember when we were at KGO, we had the woman that runs the FAFSA, that at the time, the director of the department that oversees it, on the Pat Thurston show. And she was saying, even if you feel like you don't need help with
Apply
college,
anyway, yeah.
everyone should apply. Everyone should fill it out to see where you are, what happens,
yeah.
what you're offered. And so it doesn't matter. Everyone should fill it out, right?
Yeah,
That is going to college in the fall.
It's
Yeah.
called free application for federal
right.
student aid. So, I mean, of all the applications you have to pay money for, go for the free one. It's no harm, no foul. But there's a lot of questions surrounding it, especially because not every state, I believe, does it the exact same way. Some say it's a first come, first serve, which is the worst in my mind thing to say to anybody. First come, first serve means there's just going to be this rush to get in the website. It's going to be overloaded. And so what are the best ways of handling this? Because it's stressful when you need financial help.
That's right.
Well, Mark Kantrowitz is a financial aid expert. He has also authored a number of books, 2 books. I'm going to show you them. One is called Who Graduates from College and Who Doesn't, and How to Appeal for More College Financial Aid. And Mark is so generous to come on the Nikki Medoro Show.
Yay!
Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so you heard the introduction there. First off, I mean, so I before I brought you on the show, I was telling my viewers that you actually were involved in putting the FAFSA online back in 1996, the year I graduated high school, that, I'm sure many of my friends were, I'm assuming, just filling out the paper and pen form. Was it as much of a cluster back then as it appeared to be with the soft launch on Sunday?
No, and in part, back then we were just putting the form online. We weren't changing the processing infrastructure. So there
Hmm.
was an existing uh, what's called CPS. It's now called FPS
Okay.
for processing the forms. And all we were doing is providing the data into that, not re-engineering it. This time, as part of FAFSA simplification, they're not just simplifying the form, which involves deleting questions. They're also changing that underlying infrastructure, rebuilding it from scratch, because it's decades old.
Hmm.
And that's partly where the problems have arisen, and partly, this is essentially a brand new form.
Right. Okay. So have you checked out the new form?
I was able to submit it yesterday for the first time, despite reloading the website every half hour or
Oh,
so
geez.
from when it supposedly was supposed to be available on Friday until the present. But I was able to get through the form. There were only relatively minor glitches. Um, the two glitches I encountered, one, the contributor never received the email.
Mm.
But that may be a glitch in there asking for the contributor's email address because I listed married filing jointly. There shouldn't have been a request for a contributor. And the
Oh.
other was in the list of schools, when I specified the city and state in which the college exists, it was in kind of random order, not
Hmm.
alphabetical order, not in order of federal school code. So some schools have multiple federal school codes, like one for undergrad and the other for grad.
Hmm.
And if you see the name of your school and it happens to be the graduate school version, you might still select it even if you're looking for the undergrad. So that's whereas if it's sorted alphabetically, you're going to see them all at once.
Right. And
So,
you'd
so
see
that's a
probably those two next to each other and know that you want to go to the undergrad versus the graduate school,
right, or vice versa.
or vice versa. Okay, so as far as the questions that are on it versus the ones that were removed from, the original form, why were these changes made? What kind of questions were deemed unnecessary, I guess?
Well, part of the reason for FAFSA simplification is the complexity of the form, which is more complicated than your federal income tax return.
Oh,
But
fabulous.
it was seen as a barrier to college access that you had to have a PhD in finance to complete the form. So the new form gets rid of about two-thirds of the questions.
Oh,
And
wow.
maybe a few more, maybe a few less. A lot depends on the details. Like if you're an independent student, then parent information isn't required. They got rid of most questions that affected only about 1% of applicants. So why make everybody answer a question that most people won't need to answer? And they had greater alignment with the federal income tax return so that more of these questions could be answered by transferring data from the IRS into the form.
That's a good
And that
idea.
transferring data is now automatic, and you have to agree to it if you want to complete the form. If you don't agree to it, then you're not getting federal student financial aid.
Well, I was going to ask you because you mentioned an independent student not needing, the information regarding parents. And this is, again, I'm speaking as someone who my oldest child is a freshman in high school, so I'm a couple years away from even considering this. But it would make sense to me that a student who wants financial aid would not want to be on their parents, because obviously that you would assume that they would have a higher income. If I have a very low income, then I might be able to qualify better. Is that true?
Well, you're substituting, if you're an independent student, the finances of a spouse possibly for finances of a parent. So sometimes it leads to more financial aid, sometimes less. But you can't simply declare yourself independent. If you're under age 24, single, you have no dependents other than a spouse, you aren't an orphan, you aren't a veteran or serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, you're most likely going to be a dependent student. It's only
Hmm.
if you answer yes to one of these personal circumstances questions, which are the dependency status questions, that you will be considered an independent student and parents' information is not required. Now, there is an ability of a college financial aid administrator to perform a dependency override to change you from dependent to independent in extreme circumstances, like court protection from abuse orders against the parents, both parents incarcerated or institutionalized,
No.
and anything that really reflects a dissolution of that family. And that's incredibly rare. Less than 1% of applicants qualify for a dependency override. But the ones who do, there is a change this year. Instead of requiring you to ask for a dependency override every single year, you can ask for it the first year, and then it's assumed to continue unless there's conflicting information in that subsequent year. So that simplifies things a lot for many students.
So you can't just say, my parents aren't helping me pay for college.
That's what I was just going to
I'm
ask.
completely
Yeah.
on my own here. I'm
They don't
everybody's
want me to go to
fine.
college. Yeah.
No one's in jail, but I'm on my own financially wise. You can't say
No,
that.
you can't say that.
No.
And even if your parents are out of the country or not U.S. citizens or unwilling to complete the form or unwilling to and pay for college,
Right.
you're still considered a dependent student. Now, there is an option for you to complete the form without parental information, but then the most you'll be eligible for is unsubsidized federal Stafford loans. And that's just loans. It's not the grants. It's not other financial aid. And that's very difficult for a student to be able to afford to pay for college without that.
How much money? I mean, what is the range of money that you would get in financial aid? Between what, a small stipend to full ride? Is that what you're applying for with this?
Well, you are, and it's a collection of financial aid from multiple sources.
Okay.
So there's the federal Pell Grant, which is about $7,400. There's the federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, which can be up to $4,000, but in most cases a lot less.
Is that per month or per year?
Per year.
Okay.
And then there's federal student loans, which start off for a dependent student at up to $5,500 as a freshman, all the way up to $7,500 as a senior. Independent students get $9,500 to $12,500. There's state grants, which vary by state. Some states are very generous, like the Cal Grant in California, and the in New York has the TAP grant. There are also money from the colleges themselves called institutional financial aid. And that's where a significant part of the money comes from. And each college has different levels of generosity. Now, some of them are more expensive and give more grants, but what you need to focus on is the net price. That's the total cost of attendance, tuition fees, housing, food, transportation, book supplies and equipment, and the other expenses, minus the gift aid, the grants and scholarships and other money that doesn't need to be repaid. That's your net price. And so you could have a high cost college that has high grants, but the net price is still greater than the cost of attendance at an in-state public college. So you have to do a comparison of each college based on their financial aid offers. Now, the colleges do have net price calculators that you can use to get an estimate in advance, but the net price is the way to compare colleges on an apples to apples basis.
Are there any things that hurt you in the financial aid process? And the first thing that pops into my mind is, like, I'm saving for my kids' college through a 529 plan. Is that hurting them? Does that disqualify them? I've heard rumors that you shouldn't do that because then that disqualifies your child for financial aid.
Well, it doesn't disqualify you. It reduces the amount of financial aid by a small amount. If it's owned by the student, a custodial 529 plan account, or the parent, it is reported as a parent asset on the FAFSA. Now, new this year, 529 plans owned by for siblings, where the parent's the owner and the siblings the beneficiary, aren't reported. It's only for the student. So that has a big impact. And reporting it as a parent asset, parent assets are assessed on a bracketed scale with a top bracket of 5.64%. So if you've got $10,000 in a 529 plan, that's going to reduce aid eligibility by 500 up to $564, which still leaves you with $9,436 to pay for college costs. So you
Okay.
still come out ahead. Now, new this year is a change for 529 plans that are owned by anybody other than the student or parent. So a grandparent, aunt, or uncle. It used to be the case that these aren't reported as assets on the FAFSA, but distributions counted as untaxed income to the beneficiary, and that reduced aid eligibility by as much as half of that distribution amount.
Oh, wow.
That was
Oh,
a
wow.
big negative impact.
Mhm.
Well, this year, the question in which untaxed income to the beneficiary would have been reported, the cash support question, has been eliminated. So a grandparent-owned 529 plan will no longer have any impact on eligibility for need-based financial aid. So that's a big improvement.
Can
I
you
agree with Carson.
can you transfer your 529 into a grandparent's name then?
Possibly. It
Okay.
depends on the state. There's two different methods. One would be to change the account owner. In
Mhm.
many states, you can only change the account owner in the event of death or disability or some other drastic situation like that. In some states, you even have a successor account owner listed when you create the 529 plan. The other method would be for the grandparent to open a 529 plan with themselves as the account owner, and then you do a rollover from the parent-owned 529 plan to the grandparent-owned 529
Mm.
plan.
Yep.
The main issue with that is if it's in a different state, many states consider an outbound, out-of-state rollover to be a non-qualified distribution.
Mhm.
That would then be taxable at the earnings portion of that would be taxable at the state income tax
Oh,
rate of the parent,
right.
and there would be recapture of any state income tax breaks that have been previously received corresponding to the amount of that rollover. So if you're going to do this, you have to have the 529 plan for the grandparent in the same state as the 529 plan for the parent.
I see. I see. Now, when we're talking about, financial aid, I'm seeing, I think it was Lady Beatrice, one of our viewers was talking about the fact that you need to be a full-time student versus a part-time student. Is that true?
Right. So some types of financial aid are prorated based on enrollment status. The federal Pell Grant, if you're enrolled half-time, you're getting half of the Pell Grant that you would otherwise receive. Student loans, you have to be enrolled at least half-time.
Mm.
If you're enrolled less than half-time, you don't get the federal student loans. So it depends on the type of aid. Now, if you're going to be enrolled, say, quarter time, you can opt out of the federal Pell Grant if you know that next year you're going to be enrolled full time to preserve your eligibility for it.
Ah,
The Pell Grant has a limit of the equivalent of 6 years of Pell Grant eligibility. So in some cases, you might want to opt out of a small Pell Grant to preserve eligibility for a larger one.
Now, again, if you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Mark Kantrowitz, and he's written several books. One is How to Appeal for More College Financial Aid. Um, I read that title, and I take that to mean I get a response regarding financial aid, and I don't like it. I need more money. I want more money. So, what are some of the tips that you give parents that I'm sure call you all the time and say, I can't afford it. My kid can't afford it. I need more financial aid for them. And they don't want to take out student loans because I subscribe to the belief that you should, either pay for college or get a
Mhm.
scholarship or a grant because student loans will get you in the end.
Right. So a successful appeal for financial aid, more financial aid, is based on special circumstances. And special circumstances are differences. Anything that changed from the base year upon which the income is based, which is the second prior year, the
Mhm.
prior year. Also, anything that differentiates your family from the typical family. So, as examples of the first, we could have a change in income, job loss, pay cuts. And you had a bonus then, and you don't have that bonus now. And the 2-year-old income information. So for the 2024-25 half, so that's 2022 income, is not reflective of your ability to pay now.
Okay.
It can also be things like high unreimbursed medical or dental expenses, or high dependent care costs for a special needs child or elderly parent.
Mhm.
Um, your house was destroyed in a tornado or an earthquake. I mean, even though your primary home, your family home, is not counted as an asset on the FAFSA, it's nevertheless an appealable item because when your home's destroyed by a fire, you lose all the stuff inside as well,
Hmm.
and that can often increase your costs. And so, even though they can't make an adjustment to an asset that isn't reported, they can probably give you the benefit of the doubt on other items. So the most common appealable item is a change in income, and that's also the most likely to be approved. The process is you write a letter to the college financial aid office. It should be a short letter where you detail the special circumstances, one bullet per item, where you're specific as to what happened, on what dates, and the financial impact. Um, and usually you'll have more than one because when it rains, it pours. Um, and then you include copies, not originals, of documentation to support your appeal. So if you've been laid off from your job, a copy of the job layoff notice or proof that you received unemployment benefits within the last 90 days. You send this to the financial aid office. You call them after they would have received it just to confirm that they received it and to ask if they have any further questions. And most colleges will respond pretty quickly. Sometimes it's just the financial aid administrator who makes the decisions. Sometimes it is a committee. But if they approve, if they think that your appeal merits an adjustment, that adjustment will be related to the financial impact of that special circumstance. So if you've had a change in income, they will make changes to the data on your FAFSA reflecting that reduction in income. And that will yield a new student aid index, which will yield a new financial aid package. So it's not that they think, oh, and you had this unfortunate circumstance, we pity you, we're going to give you a few $1,000s more.
Right.
No, it's all after they decide that it merits an adjustment. At that point, it becomes formulaic.
Right. There's a calculation involved in doing that. We have another question. What if you're only getting half your Pell Grant and you're in danger of running out of out of pocket money? What should that student do without risk of financial aid debt later?
Well, it depends on the reasons why you're running out of money. If you had on uh, unanticipated expense, many colleges have emergency financial aid. So your car broke down and you're having trouble getting to school because you're a commuter student. You talk to the financial aid office, and they will sometimes they will provide you with money. It might be a loan though, but sometimes it's a grant to help you repair that car, or you need money to get bailed out of jail because you partied too heavily. Or another common thing is, if you're food insecure, you don't have enough money to buy food. Many college campuses have food pantries. Um, ice for transportation. Some of them will have in the financial aid office a fishbowl with local transit cards so that you can take the bus for free. Some even build it into your student ID, and you may not be aware of that they do a deal with the local public transportation to provide free transportation for all students. So there often are options. And also talk to the financial aid office, explain what's going on. Maybe your textbooks cost more than you anticipated, more than the allowance that's built into the financial aid formula. In that case, show them the receipts, and they may adjust the book, supplies, and equipment allowance that's in the financial aid formula to accommodate your actual costs, and then you'll get more financial aid. Now, that additional financial aid may be grants, but it also may be in the form of loans.
Yeah. Another question from Lynn. If a student takes more than 4 years to finish their BS or BA degree, does he or she still get financial aid? Can they still get financial aid?
Generally, yes. There is something called the maximum time frame restriction, which is if you are not going to complete your degree within 150% of the normal time frame, which is 6 years for a 4-year degree,
That's what I was
you'll
thinking.
lose aid eligibility. And also, the Pell Grant is limited to 6 years worth of financial aid. So after that 4 years, you still have 2 years left. Now, with the student loans, there are annual and aggregate limits. I mentioned the annual limits before, 5,500 to 7,500 for a dependent student. There's an aggregate limit of 31,000. Now, if you sum up the annual limits, they total 27,000. So you get some borrowing capability during that 5th year if you, even if you've maxed out the annual limits before then.
Oh, I see.
And you might not have ability for a 6th year, but the Parent Plus loan is also available after for your parents to borrow, and that doesn't have any annual or aggregate limit other than the total cost of attendance minus other aid.
And that's a loan, the parent one.
That's a loan,
Yeah.
and loans have to be repaid. You earn
Exactly.
interest.
I feel like people are looking for the free money, Mark. That's what I'm sensing that people want to do this as cheaply as possible, which means less out of pocket. Now, I am a huge proponent, Mark, of community college first. Here in California, many of our community colleges for the first 2 years are free. So for me, that's a no-brainer. Does going to community college first impact the grants, scholarships, loans that you can get when you go to a 4-year?
Well, it does have an impact. Now, the maximum time frame restriction is based on the degree level. So if you took 2 or 3 years for your associate's degree, you still have up to that 6 years for the bachelor's degree. And those first 2 years or 3 years do count against it, but you increase the time frame before you lose aid eligibility. Now, I generally don't recommend taking a detour through a community college. Community colleges are great if that's your goal to get an associate's degree or certificate. But if you're looking to get a bachelor's degree ultimately, you may miss your destination if you take a detour through that community college. Students who start off at a community college intending to obtain a bachelor's degree succeed in doing so within 6 years only about 20% of the time.
Really?
Now at colleges that have what are called strong articulation agreements, where if you get that associate's degree, you're entitled to transfer to a 4-year public college in the state. Those it increases about 30%. Whereas
I would have thought it would be much higher if you had your own separate track.
No, and the problems that kind of forced you into a community college path, like money, those persist even after you get that associate's degree. And that's despite the BOG fee waiver, or now it's the California Promise Grant is what it's called, even though that makes the tuition free for 2 years at that community college. So that compares to 2/3 of students who start off at a 4-year institution getting that bachelor's degree within 6 years. So it's a trade-off. Now, individual circumstances vary. So maybe in your case, you know that you're going to complete that 4-year degree. But if you're doing this solely to save money, it may not be as successful, in part because some of those classes that you took in the community college may not transfer, or that you may get general credit for them, but not serve as a prerequisite for the similar class at the 4-year degree. So you might have to retake those classes. And that means it takes longer to ultimately achieve that 4-year degree, and longer means more expensive.
Do you think the number of grants or scholarships or whatever that a college offers students is responsible for the rising college tuition? What is the relationship there? Is it better to not offer these things, and that would possibly bring down the average cost of going to a college?
Well, need-based financial aid makes college more affordable despite the increases in college costs. College costs go up faster than the need-based financial aid. So it's not that financial aid causes increases in college costs. The main exception would be at for-profit colleges, where there's something called the 90-10 rule that in effect forces the colleges to increase their costs whenever financial aid increases. But at traditional public and private nonprofit colleges, there is no significant impact.
So the federal government kind of getting into the student loan business when we were talking about the student loan debt, kind of offering these things. Is there a relationship between that and the cost of college?
Well, during 4 years of the Bush administration, the loan limits didn't, the Pell Grant didn't increase, yet college costs went up. From 2008 to the present, annual and aggregate loan limits didn't increase, yet college costs continue to increase. And nobody in their right mind thinks that a $7,000 Pell Grant or a $5,000 student loan causes a college to charge $70,000, $80,000 a year.
What does make a college charge that much money, Mark? Because that's my question.
Well, government support of post-secondary education has not kept pace with increases in college costs. And I mean, colleges have a mix of expenses, faculty and staff salaries and benefits, facility costs, equipment costs, energy costs, all of which go up faster than inflation. Now, we have to distinguish between the sticker price and the net price. The sticker price isn't what most people pay, it's the net price is what people pay. And the sticker price is going to go up by a factor of 2 in some cases relative to the gift aid that the college gives out. But it's the net price that really matters from the student perspective. And so you do have a multiplier effect from the awarding of financial aid. So for every dollar of gross tuition, the college may be netting only 50 cents on that dollar. So that means that they have to increase the sticker price at twice the rate of the increase in the revenue to the college. So and it's a little bit complicated to understand, but that's basically one of the key drivers of increases in the sticker price, as opposed to increases in the net price.
Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to ask you, is there a limit at which you should even bother filling out the FAFSA? As in California, middle class is a lot different than middle class in the middle of the country.
Good point.
So we may be making, I don't know, pick a number. If a family in the Bay Area, say San Francisco Bay Area, makes $300,000 a year, which is kind of, I would say,
seems like a lot of money.
It seems like a lot of money, but then
doesn't go very far.
It might not be compared to other parts of the country. Is there a limit at which you should just not even bother applying for financial aid?
Well, one needs to consider that wealthier students tend to apply to more expensive colleges.
Right.
And financial aid is based on financial need, which is the difference between the college cost of attendance and ability to pay as measured on the FAFSA or some other financial aid form. So there are 2 ways to have greater financial need. One is to have a lower student aid index, the ability to pay. The other is to have a higher cost of attendance. So if you're enrolling at a college that charges $80,000 a year, you're going to have greater financial need than if you enroll at an in-state public college that may charge $30,000 a year. And so that still makes it worthwhile for many middle income and even some high income families to apply for financial aid. Also, filing the FAFSA is a prerequisite for receiving federal student loans. And some people believe that you need to have skin in the game to appreciate your education. I don't necessarily agree that you need to experience pain to enjoy something.
I agree.
And it's their future, so they know what's at stake. But some families do think that you need to have some skin in the game, and student loans are a reasonable way of doing that, and federal student loans.
Right.
Because even if you borrow to the limit for the federal student loans, you're not going to be borrowing excessively. Your goal should be to have total student loan debt at graduation that is less than your annual starting salary.
Right.
If total debt is less than annual income, you should be able to afford to repay your student loans in 10 years or less, which is a reasonable amount of time. Now, nobody likes loans, but it's very few people are able to graduate college with no loans. The key is to minimize your debt as opposed to eliminating it entirely.
If you manage to get a merit-based scholarship from someone or some organization, does that cut down on the amount of money you're eligible through FAFSA?
Well, it doesn't affect the money that you get from the FAFSA, but the money you get from the college may be reduced. It's called scholarship displacement.
Right.
Now, the good news in California is that California just passed a law that bans scholarship displacement for Pell Grant recipients.
Oh.
So, if you're a Pell Grant recipient and you receive other scholarships and grants, the college cannot reduce its financial aid offer to, and you just want $1,000 scholarship, they reduce it by $1,000. They can no longer do that unless your total grants that you're receiving exceeds the cost of attendance, which is
Oh.
incredibly rare.
Right.
Now, in other states, there is still scholarship displacement. A total of 6 states have so far banned scholarship displacement,
Mhm.
which leaves quite a few states that still do that practice. Now, sometimes if you're faced with that, there are ways around it. And first, talk to the scholarship granting organization, because sometimes they have pull with the colleges that will get them to not displace the money, or maybe they can defer your scholarship to grad school or and to a summer program or something like that, so you benefit without having it fully eliminated. There are lots of options, but scholarship displacement happens. Unfortunately, about half of scholarship recipients experience scholarship displacement, according to one survey.
Is there a state that does better regarding getting scholarships and getting grants than others? And why would that be?
Well, let's distinguish between money from the colleges and money from private sources.
Mm.
So, money from private sources, if you want to apply for private scholarships, there are several large databases out there that are free. That's a key thing, where you submit your information and it matches you against that database of scholarships, showing you every scholarship for which you're eligible. And then it's up to you to apply for them. And the typical high school senior will match about 100 of these scholarships. Some are small, some are huge. Those databases include fastweb.com and the College Board's Big Future. And I can send you links to them.
Please do. I'll
afterward.
include them in the show notes, guys, so that we have them.
Yeah. Just making a note to do that.
Thank you.
So now, about 1 in 7 students wins private scholarships that they use to pay for college, and the average amount is almost $5,000 now. The data just got updated. So it's part of your plan for paying for college, but for most people, it's not the entire plan. There are a handful of scholarships that pay for a completely free ride. Like if you win the top prize in the Regeneron Science Talent Search, that's a $250,000 scholarship.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yes, that will cover almost all of it. There's also, I think, a Coolidge scholarship that provides a free ride. There are, I'd say, probably about a dozen where the top prize is $100,000 or more. But for the average amount that people receive is much, much lower.
Right. About $5,000. I mean,
But
you were
that's
talking. Go
so
ahead.
that's money you don't have to borrow. So every
Yep.
dollar you win and every dollar you save is a dollar less you're going to have to borrow.
Is it easier to get, and I don't know if this is, that's why I'm asking, is it easier to get scholarships, financial aid in state or out of state, or does that not matter at all?
Well, for the money from the college itself,
Mhm.
in-state is easier
Okay.
because there are these, and the grants, the state grants are often restricted to public colleges in the state. I mean, there are a few exceptions, like the Chaffee grant for people who are foster youth, but for most, the typical state grant, it's only for state institutions. And the priorities of the colleges may be different with regard to in-state versus out-of-state students.
Mm.
They may have a mandate to be more generous to in-state students.
Mhm.
And they may see out-of-state students as a cash cow,
Right.
a revenue center, as they often call it. And especially international students, there usually is very little financial aid for international students.
Is, with scholarships, it seems, or even just college admissions, you kind of want to put on your best face. I have the best grades, I have extracurriculars, things like that. Does any of that matter in regards to grants and things like that. Things that kids could do now in high school to kind of better prepare, or is it just filling out the application and hoping you get chosen?
Well, I for the institutional money, some colleges have what are called merit scholarships or academic scholarships, which in some cases are based on your grades and your test scores and your class rank. So getting better grades can help you receive more institutional merit money. And with regard to the private scholarships, um, and although many of them ask for information about your high school GPA, less than 10% of them are contingent on it, and you win based on having perfect SAT test scores or anything like that, like the National Merit Scholarships. Uh, the But on the other hand, even though they don't ask for your test scores or your GPA, students who do better in high school tend to do better in the scholarship game.
Okay.
And students who take more math tend to win more scholarships and to be more likely to graduate. And it's a continuum. So if you've taken Algebra 2, you're more likely to graduate than someone who's taken maxes out at Algebra 1. If you've taken pre-calculus or calculus, you're more likely to graduate than someone with just Algebra 2. So math matters.
Well, I never knew that statistic. That's interesting. Because you do write that book that I had mentioned before, but let me throw it up there again, and that is who goes to college and who doesn't. So there it is, right there. Again, my guest, Mark Kantrowitz. Who goes to college? Who graduates college and who doesn't, Mark?
Well,
to give your book a one-line sentence, I guess. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Expectations matter. So if your parents and teachers believe you're going to go to college, you're more likely to go to college. If your parents have themselves gone to college, and you're more likely to go. And if they've gotten more advanced degrees, you're even more likely to go and graduate from college. But also, if you do better in high school, as I mentioned, a better GPA means you're more likely to graduate. College isn't for everyone, but for many people, it is the most certain path to financial success after graduation.
But it's so expensive. I think a lot of people are having, this realization because after college, you have to get a job. The job market can be very competitive. Sometimes you're going to college for one thing, and when you graduate college, that whole entire job field has changed. I mean, with the advent of AI and what it's doing to the job market and what jobs are going to be out there, it can be scary to choose a major, let alone feel like there's going to be a job around for you to get to pay back the student loans that you need to go to college. So if somebody came to you today in 2024, Mark, and said, is it worth it? And kind of what fields am I safest that there would be a job for me to be able to pay back? I mean, what would you say?
Well, college is still worthwhile, but you have to be careful. And you don't need to go to the most expensive college on the planet. An in-state public college will cost you about a quarter to a third of the cost of a private nonprofit college or a private for-profit college, for that matter. And in California, especially, there are a lot of really great public colleges. And you have UCLA, UCSD, UC Berkeley. You have the CSUs. They're all great options and much less expensive. And couple that with a Cal Grant, it makes it much more affordable. Now, some people decide that they must go to that really, really expensive college. Well, if you choose that, you're going to have to pay for it. And if you don't have pocket change that can cover the college costs, then you're probably going to have to borrow. I know people don't like borrowing, but it is an option to help you pay for that cost if you're choosing the more expensive colleges.
Yeah. Luis says guys often sleep on post-graduation financial assistance. I got $45,000 of USC debt forgiven by working in public mental health. So I guess in this instance, what you choose to do after you graduate can actually help you pay for the college degree that you got. Is that correct?
Yes, there's something called public service loan forgiveness, where you repay your student loans in an income-driven repayment plan, like the brand new SAVE plan. And after 10 years, that's 120 payments. If you're working in a full time in a public service job while repaying your loans, the remaining debt is forgiven. And that can lead to significant amounts of forgiveness, especially if you had to get a graduate degree to work in that field, like a master of social work. I mean, social workers don't get paid very well, but I mean, the additional debt doesn't matter as much if they are in in income driven repayment plans and they're pursuing a public service job.
Do you get or can you get grants for online classes, or is online education kind of not included under this umbrella?
No, online education, if it's accredited and the college has signed a program participation agreement with the U.S. Department of Education, then it's eligible for federal student aid, the same as a brick and mortar institution. You need to check whether that college has what's called a federal school code, which allows you to complete the FAFSA and list that college there. And then you'll be able to pursue an online education. Like the SNHU is a New Hampshire university that has 100,000 online students.
Wow.
Uh, so it is possible, but you need to be aware of two things. Make sure it's an accredited institution, particularly in the program that you're pursuing. So it's not just the college, but also the program. And also think about whether you have the ability to complete that education, because you will be online, not with day to day interaction with other students. And so it takes a certain personality to be
Yeah.
successful in an online environment. There have been some studies that suggest that the people who are most likely to succeed in an online environment are people who already have a bachelor's degree.
Right.
Hmm.
They already know like how to kind of sit through those classes and all that takes. Another suggestion I'd love your take on: Teach for America, AmeriCorps. Do they help you pay for a traditional college education, or how does that work?
Well, and if you volunteer with AmeriCorps, you can earn um, the equivalent of the maximum Pell Grant as an education award for each year of service in AmeriCorps. And that's a maximum. And then you can use that education award to help pay for college. So, and it's right now the maximum Pell Grant is $7,395. So that's not $70,000, but it's money that you don't have to borrow and therefore don't have to repay.
That's awesome. Okay, Mark. I mean, I really appreciate all the time. If
Yeah.
you can give parents, though, as a parting note,
Mm.
one piece of advice as they start this process of either applying for scholarships, applying for grants, applying for financial aid, what's the biggest tip or the biggest mistake you want them to avoid making?
Well, a couple on the FAFSA, don't report retirement plans like 401ks and IRAs or the net worth of the family home as an asset.
Hmm.
Those can be big assets, but they're not
Mhm.
reportable assets. So if you include them as an investment, even they are investments, but if you report them as that, it's going to significantly reduce your aid eligibility. So that's a most common mistake people make. Appeal if you have anything unusual in your family's financial circumstances. Too few people actually do appeal. And it's cheaper to save than to borrow. So start saving before the child goes to college, like you did. 529 plan is a great way of doing it. I started saving for my children's college education before they were born,
Oh,
because every dollar you save is a dollar less you're going to have to borrow, and um, and you can earn in a significant amount of return on that investment, which helps reduce the college costs. So if you start saving from birth, about a third of your savings goal will come from the earnings as opposed to your contributions. And it's never too late to start saving for college. Even a year before the child's going to enroll in college, everything that you save is going to be money that you don't have to borrow.
yeah. That is the best advice.
I have one last question for this one's for Nikki and myself, who have high school freshmen. Is there anything that we should be doing in the next 3 years
Yeah.
that can set the stage for a more successful college launch or financial aid when we have to fill out FAFSA? And that
Well,
kind of makes me think of what you talked about as far as, putting maybe your 529 in someone else's name type of thing.
right. So first of all, have your children search for scholarships because there are scholarships that are available to children in younger grades, not just high school seniors.
Mhm.
There are some even available to elementary school students.
Wow.
Wow.
Um, the um, the FAFSA is based on 2-year-old income information, which that prior year starts January 1st of the sophomore year in high school. So starting with that sophomore year in high school, you don't want to artificially increase your income, like realizing capital gains by selling stocks or other investments,
Ah,
Mhm.
okay.
because that's going to count as income and that's going to reduce your aid eligibility. Also, if you're going to get a bonus, maybe you can have it deferred until a later year. You still get the money, it's just don't have it occur until after the January 1st of the sophomore year in college, when
Mhm.
it will no longer affect aid eligibility, assuming your child graduates in 4 years. If they're going to graduate in 5 years, then you need to wait an additional year. Um, and there are a lot of things that advice on how to reduce the impact of your finances on financial aid eligibility. There are going to be fewer of them now with the FAFSA simplification. Like one of the most common tips was to have your children go to college at the same time, so skipping the grades or having twins or triplets. Well, they're no longer dividing the parent contribution by the number of children in college, so that's no longer going to have a big impact on aid eligibility. But there
Mhm.
are scholarships for twins. There are even a few colleges that have a kind of BOGO, buy one get one free, where I
Wow.
mean, one if both of the twins go, then one gets a scholarship one year and the other gets a scholarship the next year.
Wow. I don't know if I would want to. Twins seem like a lot of work. I don't know if I'm going to make that investment really early on in my life for that kind of payoff, but I appreciate the thought. And so in 1 year, Kim, because our daughters are a freshman now. So
Yep.
1 year from right now is when we
Mhm.
really need to start watching our finances and not
Yep.
artificially add to it. Mark Kantrowitz, I'm keeping you on my speed dial because I now know that you're the guy to go to, but I really appreciate your time. And again,
Yeah, thank
if you
you.
want to read some of his books, how to appeal for more college financial aid,
Mhm.
and the book, Who Graduates from College, Who Doesn't. Mark Hantrowitz, I really appreciate you coming on. Please send me those websites that can help people, and we'll talk again soon. I really appreciate all your knowledge
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day. Again, if you have questions about stuff like that, send them to me as well, because I can only imagine. Kim, I'm dreading it. I'm just being
Mm,
completely honest.
my sister's going through it right now, and I was kinda texting her during the interview. I'm like, "Is there anything you want me to ask?"
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
goes, "No,
It's
you just
hard.
ask it." Yeah,
It's
it's not
hard.
gonna
It's it's
hard
overwhelming,
to
right?
know
It's
what to
overwhelming.
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I was so happy after that Mark could come on, because
Mhm.
after I saw all the hiccups, you don't want to miss out on anything, right? And I loved, what really stuck out to me, one of the many things, is I always feel like I make, not that we're rich, right? But like, how
Mm-mm.
can you make X amount of dollars a year and apply for financial aid? That's
Right,
for people that are at this income level. And so
right.
I feel like I would be taking something away, but it's a calculation. How much does the school cost between
Yep,
how much you can afford to pay? And so to me, I take, go for it. What's the worst that
right.
can happen? What's the worst that can happen? They say no. Okay. And again, the
Well,
FAFSA is free.
and
So
and he said that you have to fill out the document in order to be considered for federal financial aid
exactly.
programs, right?
So you got to do
You
it
kind of have
anyway.
to go through this whole big process. It doesn't
So,
matter whether
exactly.
you make $500,000 a year or $25,000 a year, you still have to go through the same hoops,
Exactly.
jump through the same hoops. It's interesting though. I was very surprised when he said that 20% of students at community colleges actually
Don't
go on
complete.
to get their
Yeah.
4-year degree or their BA degree or whatever.
That surprised me
Yeah,
too. It really did. And it went up to 30%, he said, if there is that track that California has a
right.
lot of, but still that number seemed really low to me. But again,
Yeah,
it seems the
surprising.
number of students that even take advantage of free community college in California is
Mhm.
extremely low. So I guess I shouldn't really be surprised. Even when it's
Well,
free, people don't want to go.
I'm trying to scroll back and find this comment. I think it was by James Watson or John someone. who said that the statistic is probably affected by people who aren't serious, right? Who just go and
Possibly, yeah.
maybe they mess around, they want to take a class or two, but they're not serious about transferring.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, if that's your goal, if you say, all right, I'm going to do my first 2 years here, and I know I'm going to, in my area, it would be Santa Rosa Junior College, and they have a transfer agreement with UC Davis, and it used to be some ridiculous GPA where if you got a 2.8 GPA at the junior college level, then
Mhm.
you were an automatic shoe-in for UC Davis.
Oh,
Now I think they've
wow.
raised it to 3.2. I think
Still seems
college
reasonable, though. I mean,
right. I mean, much more
3.2?
achievable than
Right.
sometimes some of these colleges, you get 1B and, you're not considered anymore.
Right.
So when you're looking at a school like UC Berkeley, right, who your transcripts have to be perfect, your extracurriculars have to be perfect. Otherwise, there's so much competition, you're not going to get in.
Yeah.
So to be able to use the junior college in that way, I think College of Marin used to have a transfer agreement with UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
So, you can get into these schools and no one cares where you did your first 2 years,
No.
right? They care what it says on
Nobody
the
asks you, how
no.
many colleges they ask you, "Where'd you graduate? Where'd you
So
graduate?"
I was just surprised and a little dismayed that he said, even for what was it that he said, it's 20%.
20% for just, getting out of community college and going to a
thir-
4-year.
and then 30% if you actually had a plan. Is that what he
Well,
said? Or
30% if you belong to a state or an area where there's that fast track that
that
we were
transfer
talking about.
agreement? Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if there's a
Mhm.
transfer agreement, it's a little bit higher because you know that
Sure.
you're gonna do it, but if
Hmm.
there's no transfer agreement or you're not
Right.
going to a school that accepts that, it's much lower. You know what? I will say this, college in and of itself, graduating college can be a very personal thing. So the
Hmm.
statistics, I think everyone's going to have to obviously look at that and look at
Yeah.
the statistics, but also your kid or yourself if you're planning on going to college.
Right.
How committed am I in getting this done? How committed am I in getting it done within a certain number of years? So my maybe grant money doesn't run out or something like that. You
Hmm.
have to have a plan. I still maintain the most important decision you will ever make when you go to college, especially if you start at a community college or go to a 4-year, is what you choose to get your degree in. I feel like sometimes, and I'm not calling a business degree or a marketing degree a throwaway because I think it's very
Hmm.
important in this day and age. But sometimes if nobody knows what they want to major in, what do they major
Hmm.
in? Business,
Yeah.
which makes sense, right? Okay, I might start my own business. I might work with a business. I could bring these skills, not
Hmm.
knocking it. But what are you going to do? I want to just show you this quick video and then we'll do some of your headlines. So do you remember that young lady? She was blonde, Brielle, who was crying because she finally understood what
Oh
a nine
yeah.
to five life was. Right? She was
Yeah.
crying. She's like, "How
Yeah.
am I supposed to afford? I have to commute, and then it's so
Yeah.
expensive." Remember that lady? Okay,
Yeah. She was upset that she didn't have time at the end of the day.
right.
That it was a work. It was a sleep, eat, work, rinse, repeat.
And we
Yeah.
were kind of laughing at her. Right? We're like,
Yeah.
"Yes, welcome to being an adult." Well,
Right.
we have an update. And I'm not laughing at her. I'm gonna play this for you. But the poor girl's been laid off. Okay. So here is her updated TikTok video regarding it. And the reason I'm playing it really is the points that she's making apply to what we were just talking about. Is you can do everything right. And I'm gonna also preface this. Her TikTok page has like I want to say at least over 100,000
Wow.
followers or whatever. So this isn't just some rando, okay?
Right.
This is what she does. Her videos, I went through some of her past videos, have like more than 1 million views. So it's
Wow.
not as if this is just
Yeah.
I'm not saying that means much, but if you're going to go into this kind of field, it does. So here she is.
But I got laid off of my first post-grad job and the one that took me 5 months to find that I moved to New York City for. Basically, it's not my fault before we start. I worked for a startup and they didn't have the workload or the bandwidth that they needed to train me and to give me work to do. Like I wasn't doing anything that I was hired to do, and I was really wanting to learn. So I was thinking in my head that I wanted a job with more responsibilities anyways, but come January 2nd, I need a new job and I don't have one. I even told most of my friends, if I post this, it's because I actually thought it through. Getting laid off before the holidays, that means the hiring processes stop right before Christmas and then they go all the way till January 2nd and then they pick back up. And it's still going to probably be 2-3 week process to hire and onboard for a new job. So that's the time frame I'm looking at. And I can't wait that long. I need a job immediately. The job that I was working 9 to 5 from, I wasn't making enough to live. I don't have a savings because of that job. Like the salaries that people are making with a degree right now after college, it's just not okay. We're working so much and I still don't have an emergency fund. I don't, because I wasn't making enough to save any of it. Everything was going towards living and expenses and commuting. And
She stalled out. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay. I wanted to stop it right there because I'm going to ask you a question and just be completely honest. And I'm going to assume, so she just graduated, right? This is her first post-grad job. So she has to be what, 22? Let's just assume she's 22.
I'm going to say 23, 24 maybe.
Okay. Did you have an emergency fund?
I did not.
I did not.
But you know what? Kudos to her because she's thinking about it. I wasn't.
Right. But I mean, but I feel like it's smart. It's smart to want this. You obviously want to teach your kids, pay yourself first. My dad would say it all the time to me, pay yourself first. But she's like, I don't have an emergency fund. I didn't have an emergency fund when I was in my mid-20s either. I was paying for all of my crap. So, but I want to continue because she does make some excellent other points.
And everything else. And to go through the whole entire hiring process again is going to actually kill me. It's so defeating. It's so disappointing. And it makes me feel like you're not good enough. And I know that I am. I know that I'm a hard worker. And my boss literally said that I'm one of the smartest people he's ever had work under him. And he knows that I'm going to land on my feet and he'll give me a great referral to anybody. Don't start. I have a degree. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I had 2 internships. I built a portfolio. I worked freelance out of school.
That's a lot.
Because I was building my portfolio, taking the time, did things for free. I have done everything I possibly could have. And it's still not enough. Putting yourself in debt to go to college and you still can't find a job that pays enough for you to live. And have a balance with life too. No. It's like, I'm just hoping that this is just a transition period. So come on, welcome to me trying to find another job.
So there she is. I mean,
I find her fingernails very distracting.
They're very long. I you know what they remind me of? Just
very long and red. I'm like, hello.
Those are literally that long ass square shaped red.
Yeah.
I have a picture of me in high school going to a dance with nails like that. Like that's very 90s to me, but the 90s are coming back. So I don't know.
I know that's superficial. I also have a hard time like staying with her because she talks so fast. That I'm over here. And then
I thought she was speeding up the video for a second. And she's like,
Lord.
but but on what she was saying, right? I did internships. I had a portfolio. Going back to me saying business, marketing, so are a lot of young adults. This whole idea of digital marketing, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's huge. There's also a lot of competition. Now, I think that there's exponential growth. I mean, there's so many different businesses you can work with. I'm not saying she's not going to land on her feet or get a job, but this idea that at 23, 24, whatever she is,
right,
should be being paid enough to have an emergency fund, have work-life balance. Sweetheart. You're in your 20s. Just be happy you're young. Just be happy you're young. Okay. Yeah. Now it sucks. And I know that there's some people that they're on their own. They work their ass off. They have the student debt. It's accruing interest, all that sort of stuff. I get it. But it did. Yeah. And excellent point. Nails and upkeep looks expensive in her world.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I hate subscribing to the, don't have your coffee, your Starbucks, and you're going to be able to buy a house BS, right? That's not going to happen. But those are, Kim, very true, unneeded expenses. Maybe cut them a little shorter. Maybe they charge more for the length. I don't know. I've got fake press-ons right now. They cost me $10.
Look at you. I have au naturel. It cost me nothing.
I did this for Christmas, and they were actually pretty good. So,
cute. Yeah.
Age brings wisdom, Kim. You can go pick up press-ons, and it's totally easy.
I just like you. On one hand, I feel for her because I know that you're trying. She's new in the world and trying to find her way and figure it all out, right? But I don't know. I mean. Don't say I mean, let's be realistic. You don't tell someone that you're the smartest person I've ever had work for me. And by the way, you're laid off.
Yeah. No. Well, it's a startup. I'm assuming the startup went under, right? I mean, that's kind of the ebbs and flows of that kind of business model.
And who has a job at a startup and there's nothing for you to do? I mean, at a startup, you're working, at least Bay Area startups, you're working 24 hours a day almost.
Maybe she was in charge of the social media page. I have no idea what her job actually was, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, just take a deep breath, woman. Like,
I'm just not buying exactly what she's selling,
I think she's also using it for attention, which I gave her,
Right.
which I hope
Yeah.
she gets another job because again, she has a huge following. That was a TikTok video. So a huge following on TikTok. Her videos get a lot of views. I would say that if you want to hire somebody to do marketing for a brand, she has shown success, right? I mean, I think the numbers prove that she has the reach and she knows how to make videos that get attention. And if that's your business model and you want to improve that, I would hire the young lady. But I don't know what kind of money that brings in. I don't know if that's going to pay your debts or give you work-life balance, but it's something.
Lori asks a really good question. It used to be called paying your dues. Should you have to just because previous generations did? Just because that's the way it's always been done, should that be the way? I mean, and did anyone tell you? You're going to have to pay your dues for a while before you get to the place in life where you have enough to save and you have enough to, to pay for new tires on your car and you have enough to pay your rent and whatever.
I mean, there might be this attitude like going to college was paying my dues. No, it is not. You know, in my world, in our world, right? Paying your dues. I worked the overnight shift at a radio station with, interesting characters to say the least. Taking whatever shifts, working all the holidays. I mean, we've been radio for more than 2 decades.
I used to do the overnight shift at this alternative rock station in Sacramento, where the owner would bring in these prostitutes at night and parade them through and there I am.
Overnights in radio are always weird.
God,
always weird.
Awful. Yeah.
I could tell some stories. And I don't want to be mean because I don't know if people know
about paying your dues.
But you pay your dues. You work the holidays. You work the crappy shifts. You take the jobs even if it doesn't get you any more money. Those sorts of things. And it's interesting that maybe this generation, I won't say everybody in this new generation or the youngest working generation, don't feel like paying their dues. But look, going to college and being on the financial hook, I think gives people this idea of like, wait a minute, I have to pay back these loans, so I have to get this job. And the world still doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. At least as I wasn't financially stable until my 40s.
It's hard out there, she said.
It is hard. I want to say, probably close to my 40s, late 30s, early 40s, really started feeling comfortable. But I still I look just within the last decade, 15 years, let's say 15 years, since before I had Marley, my daughter, my oldest. Our finances have changed. We had to pay our dues. Exactly what Kim was just saying, Jim's still paying my dues and I'm ready to retire. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Yeah, Kim Schaffer. I was an intern in promotions and programming for free.
Wow,
I had to pay all for my own commute, worked overnights, all holidays, paid utility person when everyone got laid off. She says I paid my dues and it never paid off. Well, it's also the field and the job sector that I think we're in. It's very unappreciative. I'm telling you, very, very, very. Deidre, I worked telemarketing selling pagers in the 80s to put myself through college.
Wow.
Selling pagers in the 80s. Wow. All right, let's do a few headlines. I loved that interview. It went a little long, so I want to keep things light as we head towards the end of the show. So I want to finish up our talk about resolutions and fitness. But tomorrow, and I reached out to somebody that I hope can come on. So I'm actually kind of happy that we didn't get to the Preston Lord case. Kim, it's that story that I texted you about from Arizona. So I've known about this murder case in Arizona because it hit really close to home for my brother, my sister-in-law specifically, and their family. And we'll talk about the Preston Lord case, but also this idea of a rise in teen violence. And what the hell? One of the most tragic, and they're not even teenagers. You heard about the 10-year-old in the Sacramento area that shot and killed another 10-year-old. Awful story. And it's just like, who's responsible here? Because whether it's the 10-year-olds or this teen case where this teenager died, where in the hell are the parents?
Right.
That's what I'm going to say. So we'll talk about that tomorrow because it's a bit heavy. So we'll do some headlines right now. We'll finish up talking about our attention spans, our New Year's resolutions. Let me know in the comments during Kim's news if you have any New Year's resolutions, and I'm going to judge you. I'm going to judge you on them if you do or you don't. All right, let's take a look at some headlines.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
The U.S. national debt has topped $34 trillion for the first time in history. Yeah, it's a new one. New data from the Treasury Department showed the national debt reached an historic high Friday afternoon. The figure is expected to nearly double in size over the next 30 years. That's the big story. And what are
Ah.
we going to do about that?
We don't,
Huge.
okay. I know it's a big
$34
problem.
trillion.
I feel like that number is not, it's not that it's not a real number. I don't think that we take it seriously. Does that
Mm-mm.
make sense? I
Yeah.
feel like on one hand, I understand Republicans. It's all you Democrats, all spending, spending, spending. We're trying to rein it in. And what about our kids and our grandkids? On the other hand, damn, do we always have enough money for war, right?
Mhm.
We always have enough money for certain things. We have plenty of money for war. That whole dark budget or whatever that the national defense has, why are you dig into their coffers a little bit and try to find some of this money? But we don't. So, and
No.
I not knocking national security. Obviously, I believe that the number one role of government is to keep the people safe,
Mhm.
but we always seem to have enough money when it's time to go to war.
I have to verify what I just said is true because um a trillion, yeah. They left out the R. And so I thought, is it something else?
Is it
It's making sure,
billion? Does
yeah,
that mean
34
billion? No, it's
$34
trillion.
trillion. Yeah, that's it.
$1 trillion. My God.
Speaking of jobs, Blue Shield of California is laying off 185 employees, including about 50 at the company's headquarters in Oakland. The
Wow.
California insurance giant says the workers will be released at month's end. The cuts are coming across departments, including management, engineering, analysis, and administrative assistance. Blue Shield employs about 7,500 people in 16 California offices. It currently provides health insurance coverage for about 4.5 million people.
Wow.
Former President Trump is calling a Maine Democratic state official a biased decision maker. That's tame for him, right? Attorneys for Trump are filing an appeal to a ruling by Maine Secretary of State Shetta Bellows disqualifying the former president from appearing on the state's 2024 GOP primary ballot. Bellows' ruling followed a similar ruling by the Democratic majority Colorado Supreme Court, keeping Trump off the Mile High State's Republican primary ballot there as well. President Biden today expected to speak in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Well, Saturday he'll be speaking there to mark exactly 3 years since the January 6th U.S. Capitol riot. I would call it an insurrection. But
Right.
President Biden is ramping up his 2024 presidential campaign and is expected to cast Republican frontrunner Donald Trump as an existential threat to democracy. While President Biden is in Pennsylvania, Trump is scheduled to hold 2 campaign rallies on Saturday in Iowa. So the campaigning is heating up now that we're in 2024.
Yeah, it
Here it
is.
comes. This is, I don't know when the clock clicked over in 20, I kind of,
Clutched your chest?
I approached this whole thing
Verklempt?
with a little bit of dread as 2023 wound to a close. I just thought there's always uncertainty in
Of
2024,
course.
but with this, what I truly believe, subscribe to as a true threat to democracy that we're facing, a true threat to America. I'm very trepidatious about what lies ahead.
I am as well, although I
Mhm,
will say I'm hoping. I'm hoping
mhm.
2 things. Well, I'm hoping either 1, the US Supreme Court just doesn't allow him to run for president, which would be great. And number 2, if that doesn't happen, that the American people come out in force and say, "No, not on our watch. This is not a democracy. We don't want a king." And that's the nicest word I could use for him. He wants to be king.
Mhm,
He wants to be above all of us.
mhm.
So the rules don't apply to him. He can't break the law. There's a common saying where how Trump keeps saying, "I have immunity, I have presidential immunity." That's literally saying you're not denying that you committed the crime. You just
Yeah,
don't think that you should face punishment for it.
that's right. That's
He's
right.
not saying he's
Yeah.
innocent.
I'm
He's just saying
immune.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to be punished for it. Think about that. Think
Oh,
about that.
man. Israel is admitting to a surgical hit on Hamas, but has not said that the hit is related to the death of a senior Hamas leader in Lebanon. Many, though, starting to fear an escalation between Israel and the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah as well. A list of more than 170 names connected to the Jeffrey Epstein
Oh,
Ghislaine
no.
Maxwell sex trafficking conspiracy will be released today by a judge in Manhattan.
Ooh, what
That
time? Do we know?
According to CNBC, might already be out, not sure, which
I'll
cited a
Google.
New York City federal court official. The documents stem from one victim's 2015 lawsuit in which she claims she was recruited by Maxwell to have sex with Epstein when she was underage. So there's already a lot of scuttlebutt as to who's on this list. And not everybody on the list is connected to him in a sexual way, right? Could be business dealings, what have you.
Right.
Looking for the
So I don't see the list yet. I don't see the list. It's supposed to, apparently it's going to be rolled out. So we won't get it all at one time. So, okay.
Many state jobs are open if you're looking for a job, and some of them have a very generous compensation, up to $34,000 a month. Wow. State jobs in California are known for having good pay, benefits, and belonging to the country's largest pension program. $34,000 a month? That's quite a big chunk.
For what?
Up to $34,000 a month for a state job? I don't know about that.
Okay, hold on. Let's do the math.
Who makes $34,000 a month?
34.
Sign me up for that job.
I mean, it's a $400,000 a year job.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. No.
Maybe 3,400. Maybe it's a typo. I can understand.
Maybe.
No, but even that's a little too low. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, if it is $34,000 a year, wow,
we're in the wrong business. Let's find that out.
I need to start applying. Jeez.
Some of the top positions are open, but most will close within days. Attorney positions for the Judicial Council of California pay up to $15,000 a month. The chief psychiatrist for the Office of Emergency Services pays up to $33,000 a month, and the medical director pays more than $34,000 a month. You can.
So that's a $400,000 a year job. Now that you're saying it,
website. Yeah.
Now you're saying the specific jobs. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have to have a license and a medical doctorate and whatever else. So, ABC is starting the new year with a jump in viewership for its annual New Year's Eve special. This first half of the Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve with Ryan Seacrest 2024 had more than 7 million total viewers. That's a 35% increase from last year's telecast. Audiences didn't want to miss the ball drop, causing the program to peak around midnight and draw in more than 22 million total viewers. It's a 30% jump in total viewers from last year's figures. So apparently, New Year's Rockin' Eve continues.
I didn't watch it. I had Anderson Cooper and what's his face,
Andy. What's his face?
Cohen.
Yeah.
I had it on in the background just for the ball drop,
right?
And then I kind of clicked back and forth to it. I don't find it that entertaining. I always feel like they're stretching for time, and I don't know, somebody that's like in the media business, you could tell when they're stretching for time. So it's okay. I like them drinking and taking shots, and Anderson Cooper has a funny giggle, which I guess is the thing, but I'm not that enthralled with it now.
This report is sponsored by you, which means we do rely on you to help fund the show. Find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com, thenikkimedoroshow.com. Patreon links, PayPal links, it's all right there, all laid out in black and white, clear as crystal, as they say. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you. And we'll do our thank yous to those that have also donated to our super chat towards the end of the show. But it was, how many of us have made a New Year's resolution to stop using these so much? So I'll be honest. It's one of the arguments that I have with my children, even my husband. I'm like, you're on your phone too much, right? You're on your phone too much. You're on your phone too much. But it was this statistic, Kim, that blew me away. The latest research into our attention spans caused by the use of technology in our phones. Of
course, yeah.
How long do you think a person can concentrate on a single screen for? How long?
A single screen?
So if you're looking at something, so on the computer or your phone, right? And you're reading something, how long before you click away?
And you're not talking about scrolling up and finishing the article. You're talking about clicking somewhere else.
Yes, clicking somewhere else. Like leaving what you're watching or reading and going to something else.
5 minutes?
Well, that's really generous. I think that the last time they did research, it was maybe between 2 and 3 minutes. It is right now 47 seconds.
Really?
47 seconds. They cannot.
You can't read an article in 47 seconds. You just read the first couple of paragraphs and move on.
That's what they're also saying.
Sometimes the meat is in the bottom. You don't get the meat.
Right. But we don't want the meat. Our phones and computers, but obviously, if you're using your phone more than a desktop, are designed like you're scrolling, right? But versus having a piece of paper or a newspaper, right?
Right.
Where you're reading, the phone or the computer is designed for you to read quickly, to scan, to scan, to scan, to scan. Your brain especially is not as engaged in reading every
Right.
word and then going back as we naturally do if we're reading a book or reading a newspaper or something tactile like that.
Right.
47 friggin' seconds.
Mm-mm.
So if you're trying to break your phone habit, which I am as well, I really try to go to the library and get a lot of books. I finished an entire book on my holiday break to Arizona.
What'd you
really
read?
just it's like a rom-com kind of
I
book.
like those. I'll take that.
Something About You reminds me. It's like an 80s song.
Yeah.
That's the title.
Yeah.
But it's about a woman who has always had a thing for her high school boyfriend, and it was trashy and it was fun to read. So that's what I
Whatever.
read.
Sometimes that's great. And but see,
it's reading.
I
It's reading.
have Kindle on my phone,
Right.
and I'll read books like that, and I'm not clicking away.
True, but do you ever look to the side to see your phone? Are you saying that when you're with your Kindle, you're solely not distracted? Before your attention goes to something else, how long
Oh.
does that take?
So maybe
47 seconds.
20 minutes, and then I'm checking my email and whatever, and then I'm back to what I was doing before.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because the
Yeah.
number one thing they say don't do, which
Yeah.
is really funny, it's similar to smoking. Don't do it cold turkey. Like, don't be like, I'm never going to check my phone, or I'm going to I'm going to delete all these things. Deleting social media apps off your phone can help. But what they say, the number one thing that can help you break the habit is to be more mindful of when you want to be mindless with your phone. So for instance, you
Mhm.
set an alarm maybe every hour, and then you set a second alarm for like 20 minutes. Let's just start there. That's pretty generous. So you're going to spend 20 minutes of every hour mindlessly scrolling on your phone, whether it's checking your email, your social media, whatever. But when the bell goes off, you need to go focus on whether it's work or doing or exercise or doing something else, whatever
Yeah.
your goal is to do. Because when you do those things, it trained your brain again. Like, I don't need to do that right now.
Mhm.
So for instance, kind of taking back to the smoking analogy, and I'm not going to say this is going to work for everybody, but I had a friend who was like, I gave myself a cigarette an hour, and she was like a heavy smoker.
Mhm.
And she's like, you know what? I knew that I was going to be able to have a cigarette. So if I started to want to chain smoke, constantly smoking, which is what a lot of people would do, but like, I don't need to, because I knew that there
Mhm.
was going to be a time in which I was going to be able to satisfy that addiction. And the same could be for your phone. So I'm not going to check my Facebook right now. This is how I think of it. I'm just going to wait for all the love and notifications to pile up, and then I'll get to them then. Because otherwise, you're constantly checking for the next ding or heart or like or
Yeah.
comment or something like that. Let them build up a little bit, dedicate the time, and then you could do it.
So I agree with you on principle. However, it seems like people in my life are accustomed to me responding really quickly, right?
Right.
So if my daughter responds, I need a ride, I need this, I need whatever, or just, I get a text from a coworker or whatever, I want to be able to respond fast. So how do you manage that? A family member calls, my mom needs me next door, my sister
Right.
needs something,
Well,
whatever. Like I want to be there for my people. So how do you, I
Well,
don't
I think that
know,
there is a way on your phone. So, for instance, I use sleep when I'm sleeping,
right?
because if not, then my phone is constantly dinging and it's distracting. But I have it set up so if my husband or my parents call,
Right.
their phone calls or
Come
text
through.
messages go through no matter
Yeah.
what setting I have it on. So you
Right.
could do something like that. Just be like,
Yeah.
another thing. And I don't know, because I haven't really delved into my new phone that much. But when you're driving your car and somebody texts you, they get a text back that says I'm driving, so
Yeah.
that they're not constantly. I mean, there could be something like that. Like if somebody texts you, and I don't know if this is a feature of the phone, it should be. That you text like I'm in a no talking zone, or I'm taking a break from my phone for the next hour. I will text or call you back when I'm done. Something like that.
Mhm.
Letting people know, maybe even saying it on your voicemail. Like, hey, this is Kim. You shouldn't be leaving me a voicemail because I'm never going to check it anyway. But if you
Yeah.
are, I only check it, in the evenings, or I check it once a
Right.
day, or something like that.
Yeah.
Being mindful, because what I do also find to be true is when you compare the amount of time that you spend on social media and checking and doing all those things
Mhm.
versus what you get out of it, Did you get a job prospect? Did you get a story idea? Did you get, an update on somebody's life that you haven't had? Probably not. What did you
Mhm.
get? A silly meme, a heart, a thumbs up for something that you could have waited the
Right.
other 40 minutes to receive?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I'm trying to move more. Got my Fitbit. Let's see. I've been sitting. See, this is the problem. I've been sitting on my ass all day. Okay, so let's see. Today I have taken. What's your guess on how many steps I've taken today?
I'm
Give me
gonna
5 minutes.
say
I
you've
woke up at
taken
7:30. I woke up at 7:30.
800
Ooh,
steps.
close.
Yeah.
785 steps.
Look at you.
That is I love that you're building that up. That is nothing. That is nothing. So I need
Well,
to
it's
move my
still
ass.
early. It's still early. I mean,
And I
and
was
you
sitting in this chair all day. Like I'm
right,
like
we started at you were what? Up at I don't know what time, and then
7:30.
you
Woke up at
sat in the
7:30.
chair, you had to prepare for the show a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you've been sitting for the show for a couple of hours. So,
Yeah.
you're gonna get up and move around. I, on the other hand, will stay firmly planted on my ass for the next 3 hours of shows. So
You
look at
gotta
you.
you gotta go
You
like
got a
this.
leg up. Yeah.
You gotta go like this. And I picked
I
up
need
my
one of those under the desk, like, cycling
Yes,
things.
we have
Yeah.
a colleague that had one over at
Yeah.
KGO, and
Yeah.
it worked pretty good. And I was saying at the beginning of the show when I was working in San Francisco yesterday, I'm trying to do like lunges or squats or wall sits. Sherry, our old producer of the Nikki Medoro show at KGO, she would do wall sits
Yeah.
during our breaks. She's like, it works your core, gets your knees in shape. And so I tried it. Oh my God. Wall sits suck. I'm just gonna say if
Yeah.
there's an exercise I hate more than running, wall sits. Those are really,
Yeah.
really difficult. But yeah, I'm gonna walk my dog more. I'm gonna just try to get moving, move more, eat less ultra processed foods. I'm not trying to lose
Mhm.
weight. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm just trying to cut out ultra processed food, move more, and then use my phone less, read more, do those sorts of things. Those are my New Year's resolutions because I just feel like we have to.
You make a lot of stuff with puff pastry. I wonder if that's ultra processed, the puff pastry
I bet
stuff.
if I made it from scratch, it would not be. I'd have to look at the ingredients of the
Mm.
puff pastry.
What's in
But
the crescent roll?
oh no, my God! The moment I
But
posted that thing about the
oh,
crescent roll,
that
everyone's like,
that
"It's a terrible thing to eat."
but that tree was cute and looked easy. Like, even
Thank
I could have
you.
done that.
It
Yeah.
was really good. The
Yeah.
kids weren't that into it.
Mm.
Not as much as the cheesecake one. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
that candy cane cheesecake thing.
Mm.
Do you know how many views I got on that candy cake just to go to this whole thing?
No.
Almost 2.5 million people.
What?
Yes, 2.5. That was the most popular thing I've ever posted in my entire life was the candy cane cheesecake with the jam. They love it. And it
Wow.
was so good. The tree did pretty good as well. Puff pastries are good. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
really yummy. I have to come up with something for Friday. So
Mhm.
that's no, I'm not saying it's going to be healthy. I didn't say healthy. I said not ultra processed.
Processed, right.
Difference, people.
Uh,
Katie writes in tandem with a neighbor, I'm going to schedule a day each month to take 2 to 3 boxes to the Salvation Army. That's our
nice.
resolution. It's time to clear out the clutter. I'm so glad you brought that
Yeah.
up because now I have another thing, but it's because I have to do it because it's tax time. I need to get organized.
Clear out clutter.
Organized. I am surrounded by papers. I can't throw anything away, but I also can't seem to organize them. So that's another thing I
Yeah.
want to do. Planning out things and planning my life, getting better sleep, kind of taking care of myself that way, but with no pressure. No pressure to like lose a certain amount of weight or do
Right.
something like that. I just want to do things that make me feel better.
I think
So,
that's probably gonna be my resolution as well.
yeah.
That clearing out the clutter. I have you used to be you'd walk into my house, and as you walk in, to the right, there's a living room, and to the left, there's a dining room, and then there's like a little walkway in
Right.
between the two. Right.
Uh-huh.
So the living room used to be a playroom. Toys, like you'd walk in and it would be
Everywhere.
like
Yes.
toys central, right? And so in the last month, and my sister helped me with this, if you're watching, thank you. She helped me kind of clear out the clutter. And I put some stuff on the street. It was taken within 10
Oh,
minutes. It was
yeah.
gone.
Easy peasy.
And so now all that's in my living room is a Christmas tree, a couch, and a piano. That's pretty much it.
God.
So there's still some more work to do. It's amazing though, when your house is clean,
Mm.
how you want to keep organizing stuff.
Yes.
So now I'm reorganizing drawers in the kitchen, right?
Ooh.
I've gone on a tangent where I'm just like, don't need it, throw it out.
Yeah.
I've been brutal with myself the last
You
month.
have to sometimes. And
Yeah.
I love that you said that. Yeah, I'm so disorganized. I really want to get organized. I need to, kind of redo this space where we do the show a little bit.
Mhm.
But you're right about the whole keeping your house clean, staying organized, but not only that, staying organized with my time, dedicating time for certain things. Like I do the show, I pull the audio, I get some video up, but then I have to go move, right? Like get away from the computer, go move your ass somewhere. Even if it's just a
Right.
walk around the block with the dog, do that. Come back, clean a little bit. Like I can't live, like I get stressed out.
Yeah.
I got home yesterday and
Roll
I'm
your
going off.
shoulders. Move yourself.
Oh yeah, move myself. When I came home yesterday, my house is full of clutter. The tree,
No.
it's bleeding these needles all over. It's driving me nuts. I got dog
Oh.
toys from Christmas all over.
Bless
The
America.
luggage hasn't been put away.
Come on.
I need to get organized, people. Tomorrow's another day, though. Tomorrow's another day. All right, let me say some thank yous really, really, really quickly. Thank you to Marilyn, starting us off with a $5
Yay.
super sticker. Doug also came in with a $5 super sticker. I love Harry's comment. Attention span. I'm sorry. What was the question again? Harry, I love you. Thank you for the $5. And Louise coming in with $10. Great show scholarship. Thank you for another awesome show. Please bring Mark back. Yes, he's the FAFSA expert, and especially around FAFSA filing time. That's a hard one to say really quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mark was great. Again, I will when he sends me the websites for parents to look at, I will include them in the show notes. So just come back to this channel.
Yeah.
Many of you watch and replay, and I really do appreciate it. Make sure you are subscribed. You hit the thumbs up every single show. And please, just one time a month payment. Join our Patreon crew. Go to thenikkimedoroshow.com. Sign up for a monthly Patreon subscription because we love you and we appreciate you. And we want to keep doing the show well into the 2024, 25 future.
Yay. I'm so glad you're back. Yay.
Yay, I'm glad I'm back too. And I am now going to enjoy playing the updated version of our outgoing song from the one and only Jacob.
Nikki, you're oh so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom.